Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and just things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. The podcast is sponsored by the scuba diving giant Scuba Pro, who manufacture a wide range of diving equipment for entry-level scuba divers experiencing the underwater world for the first time to advanced technical divers and professional scuba divers as well. I'll talk more about Scuba Pro later on in this podcast. Hi, all of you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast. This week, one of the big London dive stores has closed. A Liveaboard has run aground in rapidly sinking tides. A handful of commercial divers have received police cautions for falsifying records. That's a big no-no. And a baby shark was rescued from an entanglement with a glove. So first off, long-established London scuba and water sports equipment store Ocean Leisure has closed its doors for the last time. Quote is, if you visit their website, there's a statement at the beginning of their homepage, and it says, the combined effort of Brexit, COVID, and rising costs has made the business untenable, and we have been left with no alternative but to close. Ocean Leisure Limited was set up in 1981, so it's been around for a good few generations of new scuba divers, and it was on Northumberland Avenue, close to the Thames Embankment near Charing Cross, and it could claim to be the capital's only central retail site to combine sales of scuba diving, sailing and triathlon equipment all under one roof. They did a little bit of everything. It wasn't just a scuba dive centre. They did scuba, sail, all sorts of like water sports. Priding itself on expert assistance for customers, it also had a specialist extreme sports and underwater photo centre, Ocean Leisure cameras and servicing and repair workshops for diving equipment, and managing director of the company was Peter Haslam. Going back to the statements, it continues to say that we would like to thank all of our customers over the last 44 years for your custom. Creditors or others with unfinished business are directed to contact the insolvency company WSM Marks Bloom LLC, and it's got contact details at the bottom of the statement. Another one of the big UK dive online retailers and dive stores. I mean, one of the things about Ocean Leisure was that, I imagine rent was pretty pricey for its location in London, and it's one of those things where you're not going to get that much kind of footfall traffic for it, so you're then kind of leaning into the website, and if you're doing most of your trading online, then why do you need a London-based store? Ocean Leisure has closed its doors, unfortunately. Moving further north up to Scotland, the Tobermory RNLI lifeboat and 2 fish farm boats were sent to the assistance of a Liveaboard that ran aground on rocks near the entrance to Loch Sunart on Monday. The Honeydew, familiar to many divers as the vessel formerly known as Valkyrie in the Orkney Islands, found itself stuck on rocks some 2.7 nautical miles to the northeast of Tobermory in a rapidly falling tide. One of the workboats transferred 11 divers onto the lifeboat and then returned to the Honeydew to help the Liveaboard crew set the anchor, secure the vessel in place so it didn't topple over and capsize, before taking them to the lifeboat as well. A few hours later, the lifeboat and the Liveaboard crew, together with the workboats, returned to the Honeydew to get it refloated on the rising tide. Once the Honeydew was refloated, checked all over for damage, she made her own way back to Tobermory with the lifeboat escorting. In a statement on their Facebook page, Honeydew owner Sarah Chan said, "As some of you may have heard, we have had a bit of a hair-raising experience this week aboard the MV Honeydew. Fortunately, I'm pleased to report that all aboard were kept safe and the vessel herself is fine. In fact, we are able to get back to normal operations within 48 hours of the incident." So it proves it's got a nice strong hull. Enormous thanks are due to the Tobermory RNLI lifeboat and the Maui Scotland's Bean Moore, Sarah Ann and their crew, who played a major part in the rescue and have continued to go above and beyond in helping us out, as well as other boats who came to assist us, including the Compass Rose, We are so grateful that you were there and willing to assist when we most needed it. Sarah was also full of praises for her guests. A very special, they're quoting now, a very special shout out to our guests on board this week who were absolutely amazing throughout, keeping calm and following instructions to the letter, being incredibly understanding, helping and supporting throughout, and remaining upbeat and cheerful through the whole experience. There couldn't possibly be a better group of divers to have on board when things go a bit wrong being an understatement. Lifeboat coxswain David McAfee also expressed his thanks and said, "We would like to extend our gratitude to all vessels who responded to offer assistance during this service. The crew of the vessels Sarah Ann and Bin Maui were exceptionally helpful in assisting to the casualty vessel and took time out of their working day and beyond to assist us." Struth, I've certainly have never experienced anything like this. I've seen a fair few headlines where liveaboards have run aground, and there was a news story, Struth, it'll be a few months ago now, where it literally capsized. I think it was an imbalance in the water, so I think it had just come out of dry docks, and it was the first vessel out, the first trip out for the vessel, and it basically listed over to its port side, I believe, and people below deck literally had to climb out over the furniture to get to the door to get out of the liveaboard. That was an incredible story. But no, from the pictures, it just ran aground on these rocks that were just below the surface, and after the tide came back up again, they dusted her off, had a quick check around, made sure everything was fine, and perfectly fine. Got her back to shore, and she's in fully functioning working order. So happy ending. The poor divers didn't. Obviously, didn't get to complete their entire itinerary, but hey, at least they got a cool story out of it. Moving to the commercial side of diving, 2 offshore commercial divers and the director of a diving company have been sanctioned for exaggerating credentials. So investigators from the Health and Safety Executive, or HSE, have slammed the trio for false claims of diving experience that could have jeopardized their own and other divers' lives in an offshore incident. Following a HSE investigation, 2 divers from the Portsmouth area have had their diving qualifications withdrawn. The 2 men and the director of an unnamed commercial diving company have also received police cautions for fraud. In December 2022, HSC received information that 2 divers may have obtained their closed bell qualifications without having the necessary prior diving experience. There was concern that their lack of experience could have resulted in a diving incident offshore, as both divers had worked for contractors in the North Sea. In order to work here in the UK as a saturation diver, also known as a closed bell diver, a diver needs an approved qualification. There are only 2 diving schools in the world that currently offer this qualification, IMPP in Marseille, France, and the Commercial Dive Academy in Tasmania. HSE contacted both of these dive schools and obtained details of the dive submitted to the schools by the divers as part of their enrolment. Inspectors then followed this information up with several UK diving contractors to check on whether the claimed diving experience was genuine. They do check your paperwork, so you do have to do it properly. And due to the legal requirement for diving contractors to retain records of dives for at least 2 years, the contractors were able to provide accurate details of dive depths and times for the individuals concerned. And funnily enough, they didn't really match up. The director of the diving company in question was unable to provide records, which is always suspect, despite having signed and stamped the diver's logbook himself. HSE went to the location of the claimed diving and, with the assistance of the harbour master, was able to demonstrate that no diving had occurred on the dates recorded in the diver's logbooks. Everybody involved records these kind of things. The diver had forged 10 at this location and in order to demonstrate that he had 20 dives over 15 meters deep, these had all been fraudulently stamped and signed by the director. The other diver was very short of experience, and HSE could only find records that he had carried out around 28 dives, only one of which was deeper than 15 meters. But of course now he's applying for like commercial saturation jobs, deep diving, and he had declared that, declared to the dive school that he had 106 dives, and 26 of which were deeper than 15 meters. 28 dives, none of which were deeper than, only one of which was deeper than 15 meters. I mean, on my HSE scuba course, I had to do a dive deeper than 15 meters. HSE worked closely with the fraud investigation team of Hampshire Police. All three individuals admitted that they had made false entries into logbooks and received police cautions for fraud by false representation under the Fraud Act 2006. HSE Diving Inspector Phil Crombie said, "You need diving experience to become a qualified closed bell diver, and making it up could put your life and other divers at risk. Offshore diving contractors need to use qualified divers, and these men could have worked anywhere across Great Britain. If we hear divers have made up their experience in order to get into a closed bell course, we will look very carefully at all of the records available. A logbook is a document required by law." This is on the commercial side. On the recreational side, it's a bit more lax. Commercial side, you have to fill out your logbook very, very specifically, and it is a legal document that you do have to maintain and save, keep it somewhere safe. Making false entries is a criminal offence. The police cautions issued meant that we are able to have the qualifications withdrawn quickly by the relevant authorities. Closed bell courses cost over £15,000 for a diver, and these divers have ended up losing that without gaining a qualification. It's just fortunate that they weren't involved in any accident or incident. So Hampshire Police PC Alan Mahamt said the men involved in this case did not have the requisite experience to undertake dive work of this nature, posing a serious risk of harm to themselves. This is in addition to their actions, which clearly amounted to criminal offences. We take any aspect of fraud seriously, and we are pleased to collaborate with HSE to achieve a suitable outcome in this case. We hope this will in turn reduce the likelihood of any further offending. If offending continues, then these individuals face severe consequences in the criminal courts. So very serious sort of allegations and charges held against them. It's really serious when you get especially into sort of closed bell saturation diving. You want to make sure that the guy opposite you is like qualified to be there, and if it's as easy as just someone just stamping and signing off a logbook, you have to sort of do it all properly, because everyone else is saving that information, and if they do an audit on you and they realise that, hey, you know what, you said that you went diving to this depth in this place doesn't reach that depth, or the harbour master doesn't have any kind of records of it, they're going to check into it, and you're going to get into trouble. So do record things properly. And the final news story: a Connecticut couple's scuba diving trip in Rhode Island on Monday turned into a mission to rescue a baby shark. So Deb and Steve Dauphinais, I think is your name, of Glastonbury, Connecticut, were diving on the sand flats of Jamestown in Rhode Island when Deb spotted a 16-inch juvenile shark with its head stuck inside of a work glove at the bottom at about 35 meters deep. Deb, who's a dive instructor, said she thought that the shark was dead because it wasn't moving, but when it twitched, she motioned for her husband to come over and help. She says that he came over and did his own little double take because it's basically, this baby shark with a glove for a face, and she sort of said that her husband tugged on the glove, which seemed to be like suctioned onto the shark's head, probably because work gloves tend to be quite tightly knit, and if it's on the shark's head and they're inhaling water, it's kind of suctioning it on. But eventually they managed to pop the glove off and release the shark. They said that they weren't afraid of being attacked by what appeared to be a juvenile dogfish shark, but they were cautious in case it did snap at them, because even small sharks do have teeth, and it's in a pretty vulnerable spot, and it may have been there for some time, so you never know, it can lash out, so you do have to be a little bit careful of the bitey end. And she said it kind of looked at both of us, didn't look at all injured, got its equilibrium back, and then swam off back to where it was supposed to be. Deb, who's been an instructor for about 30 years, said that it's not the first time that she's rescued a marine animal in distress. A few years ago, she freed a black sea bass that had been hooked on a discarded fishing line, so more ghost gear. And it only goes to show that just anything that you put in the water, it can be dangerous to some marine life. It's just a glove that probably some fishermen just either dropped off the side or threw off the side, and this shark has inspected it, maybe just giving it a bit of a sniff, but of course as it swam forwards and inhaled, it just kind of sucked the glove onto its head, and it stuck. And if it wasn't for Deb and husband, it probably would have died there, unfortunately, the poor little blighter. So, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm going to talk briefly about Scuba Pro. Scuba Pro was founded in 1963 by Gustav Dallevale and Dick Bonin, and in 2023 they see their 60th anniversary, and Scuba Pro is stronger than ever. Today, Scuba Pro is a global brand, and you'll find them around any dive site or dive boat, because scuba divers around the world just trust Scuba Pro as a brand. I personally have never had a problem recommending any Scuba Pro dive equipment to anyone asking. I used it whilst I was scuba diving and teaching, and so did all of my students as well. They were using Scuba Pro equipment, and no matter where you are in the world, it won't be hard to find a service center because they're located all over the world. The divers are Scuba Pro's inspiration. Every product, every enhancement, every decision, everything that they do is designed to make your diving experience the best that it can be. Because without this blue planet of divers eager to explore, their innovations mean nothing. And Scuba Pro want to thank you for being part of their journey and for being their inspiration for the future. They are so excited to share their latest innovations with you. The best is yet to come. A few big things this year have been the Ulex range of wetsuits that use a plant-based foam instead of neoprene, which is better for the planet, and the S-Tech fins, which are a more technical focused fin, a bit of a hybrid between the Seawing Nova and the Jet fin. One really cool feature is that you can actually adjust their buoyancy by adding or removing little metal plates in the fin before the dive. But for more information, head over to scubapro.com. Moving on to Ask Mark questions that were a little bit short to have a complete video done about them. The first one comes from Aidan Finucane, and they say, "Good afternoon, I have a question regarding masks. I'm completely blind in one eye. I've been considering a full face mask, specifically the Ocean Reef Neptune 3. Do you feel I would have a better field of view peripheral than a standard low volume mask? I'm interested in both warm and cold water diving. I have less than 20 dives and do understand the training required and the very high and very unfortunate price tag." Most full face masks do tend to have a pretty wide field of view, and they have the added benefit of defogging themselves, so you don't really have to worry too much about defogging them. It depends on the model. The Ocean Reef Neptune 3, it has actual side windows as well to increase your peripheral vision. I'd be quite happy with that. It does have quite a few benefits. There are pros and cons to full face masks. The first one being that your whole face is protected from the water, so that's particularly nice in cold waters and disgusting water as well, because the cold water and the dirty water, doesn't actually touch your face. You don't have to bite down on anything neither. There's no mouthpiece. I mean, it depends. If you get the the Kirby Morgan, is it the Mark 48 or something, that does have a mouthpiece. But the Ocean Reef Neptune 3 and a lot of other full face don't have a mouthpiece that you bite down on. You can add a whole bunch of accessories to a lot of them, including like underwater communications, but it means that someone else has to have the communications to be able to talk to them. Surface air valves, always useful so that you're not wasting gas. The main downside is that, it's literally attached to your face, which is great on the dive. It's quite hard to dislodge a full face mask, but when you're on the surface, if you're like de-kitting and trying to get into a rib, it's a little bit tricky. You basically have to take the mask off and just be without the mask, or disconnect it. Hey, it's not the end of the world, but you probably would have a wider field of view compared to a more traditional mask. The next question comes from Nia Ifrach, I'm going to say. And they say, what do you think about building your own harness and backplate from AliExpress and building a well-known brand wing like Hollis or X Deep? So you can find some great bargains on websites like those. Just remember that the separate components probably haven't been tested to the same standards. And as with most things, when you're buying from those kind of websites, what you actually receive might not be what was originally pictured, and they're probably not going to have the same like clever features or finish. But it's hard for them to go wrong with like a D-ring and tri-gliders. It may take a little bit longer for it to be shipped, and you've probably saved yourself, don't know, a few quid, a few dollars. But hey, if it does the same thing and you're happy with that, then yeah, great. Webbing, I mean, you do have to be a little bit careful with webbing, because there's webbing and then there's webbing. For your harness, you really want stiff webbing, because the thinner, softer stuff, it's tri-gliders don't or D-rings and tri-gliders don't hold their position. They move around, which is a bit annoying. It's softer, so it's a little bit nicer, but yeah, your D-rings do shift around with minimal effort, even with a serrated tri-glider. But yeah, the little hardware stuff, your quick release buckles and stuff, yeah, if you really wanted to. I mean, you're not going to get like an X-Deep. I mean, I imagine you're not going to get an X-Deep design off of AliExpress, but hey, you're also doing like your local dive center a bit of a disservice if you're throwing all of your money at China. Then yeah, just like Ocean Leisure, if everyone starts buying stuff from abroad just because it's a little bit cheaper, I mean, there's a little bit and then there's a lot cheaper, so you do kind of have to weigh that up. But yeah, if you are constantly sending all of your money abroad, then yeah, you just say goodbye to your local dive center. So I always recommend shop and dive local, but it is really up to your like moral system, shall we say. Personally, I wouldn't, but if it's not a big deal to you, then yeah, it's quite hard for them to mess up a D-ring. A nice short one here from Mikhail. Just ask Mark, why are you not still an instructor? I think at the time I felt like I'd like plateaued. I didn't really want to progress up the ladder and just spend more money to be able to teach more courses. I loved teaching, and I still love teaching, but no, I don't really teach anymore. And it got to a point where it was starting to get a bit repetitive, and I wanted something a little bit different. And yeah, I quit my job as an instructor. I was then looking for work elsewhere, just like instructor work or anything. Then I saw the job advert for Simply Scuba, and figured, hey, I could do that. I used to work at a dive centre, and I knew the equipment, and yeah, I started there. And then that's when I got more into like the retail side and of the dive industry. And with Sean, we built up the YouTube channel, because originally it was just like equipment, just unboxing videos basically, and then we pivoted it a bit to a bit more lifestyle kind of stuff and advice, and just kind of lent into that. It's more of like keeping up with your fees, because it costs instructors a fair amount of money to revalidate each year, and you also have to revalidate certain courses that you don't want to teach. Neither you kind of have to pay for those, and it's just like, oh no, it just got a bit much for me. I was just like, you know what, no, I'm just gonna end that section of my diving career, as it were. So yeah, and also it comes down to eventually something might happen where a student gets hurt or something happens, and it's just like, you know what, that's a lot of responsibility. I'm happy for someone else to take that responsibility on. I'd rather just like enjoy my diving without having to look after everyone else around me continually. Whenever you get on a dive boat as an instructor, you're just, I mean, even before you get on the dive boat, you're just switched on. You're just looking for anything to make sure that everything goes really nice and smoothly. Whereas as soon as you can take that kind of instructor hat off, you can kind of relax and just enjoy your diving. You get to a stage where you're only in the water with students. It's nice to be able to actually go diving. And when you work at a dive centre, if that's all you're doing day in, day out is just going diving, then or just teaching, then you really need to sort of force yourself to actually go diving just for fun again. And yeah, that's kind of the stage that I was at. And then yeah, after Simply Scuba, it was just like, well, I don't really need my instructor ticket anymore. I have no real intentions to go back to teaching. So yeah, that was it. I just let it lapse. Paul Milton asks, are regulator bag brands specifically designed for that brand, i.e. Scuba Pro regulator bag designed for only Scuba Pro regulators? No. They're all very much the same. They just have a different name on them. Some have like handy little pockets and pouches and document things, but no, most regulator bags are pretty similar. It's just a zippered bag with some padding on the on all sides. The only different ones that I can think of, you've got like the Apex MTX RC bag. I think it was the RC version, and that's like a full-on laptop bag, which is kind of cool. You get some like Velcro patches with it as well, and some like molly things. So that was kind of a cool bag, and it only comes with the MTX RC. They specifically weren't selling it as a separate part. The old Oceanic one comes to mind, and that was round. That was a bit of a pain because whilst regulators do coil up, it was quite a small circle to be able to fit them all in. So you did have to put them in quite tightly. I prefer a slightly larger one so that there's not so much like force on the hoses to bend them, especially at the ferrule. But otherwise, nah. I don't think anyone's going to give you any second looks if you put a Poseidon regulator in a Scuba Pro bag or Mars or whatever. Nah, they're all pretty much the same. Just look for one that has the best features. The branding on it doesn't really matter. And that's about it for this week. Yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. If I sound a little bit different, it's because I'm recording in a different room at the moment. And I couldn't really find any new or exciting equipment. The only interesting thing is that the the GoPro, God, is it the 12 now? Is on scuba.com. That was kind of interesting. The there are prices for the new the Scuba Pro 60th anniversary gear. The S620 Ti, the red regulator, is $2,200, and the G3, where's that gone? Bear with me. The red 60th anniversary version of the Galileo 3 dive computer is $1,963. That's a nice round number. Well done. Whereas the regular version is $1,300. I really want to get my hands on one of those and test it out. But otherwise, it's all pretty much stuff that you've probably seen or heard of before. Yeah, it seems that there's a lot of new GoPro stuff on scuba.com. There's also a new dive computer that they're advertising, which is an OM TG7 camera, which is in itself waterproof down to 15 meters. So kind of shallow diving, but it has this ultra macro mode that they call microscope mode. So for the really little things like nudibranchs and stuff, but it's mainly for shallow water. I haven't seen a underwater housing for it, but for snorkeling, definitely. Very shallow water diving as well, I'd probably start to slow down when I get to about 10 meters when I'm diving with it. But yeah, that's $550. So if you want a waterproof tough camera, then yeah, OM System Tough TG7 Digital Camera Black. I haven't heard of OM System, but hey, it's an underwater camera. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. All of you awesome scuba divers out there. Remember to check out today's sponsor, scubapro.com. Most of you probably have heard from Scuba Pro. I used to teach using a lot of their equipment. It's tough and really reliable, and they've got some nice new stuff because they're celebrating their 60th anniversary. But yeah, that's it for the podcast. Thank you for listening, everyone, and of course, safe diving.